Hello and welcome to the Central Now. I am Lekon Onobanjo. The headlines at this hour. Court finds Kano government 10 million naira for violating Bayero's rights. Niger shuts off oil export pipeline to Benin amid diplomatic row. Opposition DA party leader says coalition deal done. Details to come your way shortly. News Central Now at this hour begins with court matters. A federal high court has fined Kano government the sum of 10 million naira for violating the rights of deposed Emir Aminu Bayero. The development comes following Justice Liman Mohammed of the Federal High Court, Kano State, declaring that Bayero has jurisdiction to be heard. Justice Mohammed had on Thursday given the judgment in a case filed by the kingmaker Aminu Baba Dan Agundi. Agundi had filed a case on the fundamental human rights of Bayero in the ongoing Emirate tussle. A Kano State High Court had also ordered substituted service on Bayero and 4 other emirs in a case filed by the Kano State government to restrain them from parading themselves as emirs. To discuss this, we're joined by a legal practitioner, Towo Osiruoja, and he joins me from the United Kingdom. Thank you so much for joining us, and can you please unmute your device? So for you, what are the implications of Justice Liman Mohammed's ruling that deposed Emir Aminu Bayero has the rights to be heard in the context of the ongoing Emirate tussle?
Well, first of all, let me make it clear that it is constitutionally right. We have the constitutional obligation to accept every order or judgment of court and to abide by such order. But it's also constitutionally right for you not to agree. One thing is to accept, the other thing is not to agree with the said order or judgment. That is why there are levels there are levels you take such a decision to. You can approach the Court of Appeal, then you now go to the appeals court, which is the Supreme Court. And such decision, the decision of the Supreme Court on such matter, you will not only accept, but you also agree with such decision, because that is the final level you can go in litigation. So, to your question now, well, it really did not change anything. But you know what? Some of us who are observant and at the same time who go through the rudiments of the law through by this system set up by Nigeria legal educational system, will you agree with me that the law is dynamic? So it changes and events result to such changes. What the court actually decided is it has right here matters of fundamental rights. Do you understand? But the other issue is whether the issue before the court, fundamental right, is the substantive issue. But that is left for the counsel for both parties to argue out before the court. But when it comes to issue of fundamental right, yes, the court has jurisdiction. If you look at section 46, subsection 1 of the Constitution, you will know that the Federal High Court and also the State High Court has jurisdiction to hear issues of fundamental rights. But what people are asking is, looking at the surface of the motion, looking at the surface of the process before the court, is fundamental right substantive? Is it the main claim before the court? That is what we'll look at when the court hears the substantive matter. But for his ruling, it did not change anything, and the substantive matter will still proceed, and the law is still valid. The law passed by the State House of Assembly, repealing the 2019 and 2020 Kano Emirate Council law, still valid.
All right, so I will still dwell more on the issue of if he has jurisdiction to preside over the matter. Of course, this matter, he had earlier given a verdict on it, and whether or not it is substantive, people will still want to question the rationale if this matter should even be at the table of the Federal High Court in the first place, because it's a chieftaincy affairs matters, and that should be dealt with by the courts in the state.
No, yeah, you see, the people are missing things up here. Do you understand?
Yeah.
What constitutes jurisdiction on court is one, the party, two, the subject matter, and these are contained in the process before the court.
Yeah.
So if the process before the court, which have been privileged to peruse, but I have my own personal reservation so that I won't predetermine the outcome. Do you understand? If the matter or the subject matter has to do with the fundamental right, and let me tell you one thing clear, issue of fundamental right can be instituted by any person on behalf of another person who alleges or who claim that such rights are likely to be infringed. So if Dan Goody has taken it upon himself to say, okay, well, the right of Ado Bayero is to be infringed or is already infringed, the law allows that. So let's look at it from the context of the fundamental right. Then we'll now see when my Lord go into the substantive issue, because the truth is that issue of jurisdiction can be raised at any given time of the process.
Okay.
Even if my Lord decide not to oblige the argument of the respondent in the Federal High Court, it can be raised at the Court of Appeal. And there are cases where the court has held. There is one that is, we don't have same facts, but we have similar circumstances whereby you can rely on precedent on the authority. There's an Okorafor and others, which the Supreme Court is very instructive, and it has a scenario, should I say, a similar issue in the context of leadership tussle. Okay. Do you understand?
Yeah.
And let's in that case.
Let's just wind back a bit. Look at it from where the problem actually started. The ruling or the verdict, whatever bill that was passed, that actually led to the deposition of Sanusi Lamido Sanusi II at inception as the Emir of Kano, was that actually valid to even start with?
The bill is valid.
On what grounds?
It's valid on the ground that, well, this is a bill. Because, first of all, you should look at the arms of government. We have the Judiciary, we have the executive, and we have the legislative, which is the highest of it all. And if such a thing is passed, it needs the endorsement of the executive.
On what grounds?
If you look at it,
on what grounds?
Well, this is a bill that was sponsored in the State House of Assembly. And I've argued severally in this in several fora that irrespective of the procedure upon which a bill is passed, and it is acceded to by the executive arm of government, it remains law until it is interpreted by the courts to be null and void to the extent it contravenes the provision of the Constitution. But if you go back to now, my Lord in his wisdom, that is not what is before him. What is before him is if the rights of the party that is before him is infringed. And the court has jurisdiction to hear that. But that law that repealed or that scrapped the other existing four Emirate Council still valid and still exist.
Okay, now I understand that the Kano State government is here to respond. Do you think that, of course, it would be appropriate for them to repeal or react to this latest ruling?
Well, the only thing they can do is either one, they accept and agree with it, or two, they challenge it at the Court of Appeal.
Okay.
Or maybe the third option lawyers can look at, or maybe their counsel will look at, is to say, okay, well, let's hear the matter in totality. So that we all follow it, because when you appeal, let's just hear the matter in totality. Let my Lord hear the substantive matter. Then whatever the outcome of the decision of my Lord in his wisdom, well, it's subject to an appeal by the Court of Appeal. Then also we have the Supreme Court, which the Supreme Court in their wisdom, we look at what my Lord has done and what the other court has done and make a pronouncement on it.
Okay, so finally, before I let you go, there's been some allegations or some aspersions cast on the person of Abdullahi Liman based on past judgments and verdicts that he has given. And some people feel that he has given verdicts that have been in favor of some certain personalities that he is in cahoots with. Do you think that he has that integrity in whatever guise to deliver?
Well, as a minister in the Temple of Justice, every court you see, we see them as a masquerade.
Okay.
And in their own wisdom, in their fine wisdom, whatever judgment he might have given is based on the wisdom and the processes before him. I've been privileged to appear before my Lord, and I've also been privileged to hear some of his decisions. And I will still tell you, from as a minister, they are just mere allegations. And if such allegation and anybody has substantive proof, we have the process in which such an allegation can be proved and disciplinary actions can be taken. But if that process are not followed, it's just a mere allegation. You know what mere allegation mean? It can be referred to as something that is assuming until it is proven, accepted in evidence, and necessary actions will be taken. So we have, for me, I have confidence in my Lord that he knows what he's doing, and I have no reason to doubt his wisdom. But however, the court, that is why you have redress. The Court of Appeal can decide to uphold this decision or set aside the decision. And oftentimes, we've seen similar things happen, set aside such decision, and the same time refer such officers for disciplinary action.
Okay, Ato Oseruwoja, legal practitioner, thank you so much for your insights.
You are welcome.
Now, an appeal court sitting in Port Harcourt has directed all parties involved in the appeal filed by members of the Rivers State House of Assembly loyal to the Federal Capital Territory Minister Nyesom Wike to maintain status quo pending the hearing of the substantive suit. The 27 pro-Wike lawmakers led by Martins Amewule had defected from the People's Democratic Party, PDP, to the All Progressives Congress, the APC. They had gone to the court to stop moves to declare their seats vacant. The three-man panel of the appeal court, which sat virtually on Friday, adjourned the hearing of the substantive matter to June 20, 2024. In the meantime, the Court of Appeal has set aside contempt proceedings initiated by the former governor of Kogi State, Yahaya Bello, against the chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Olanipekun Olukoyede. In a unanimous judgment read by Justice Joseph Oyewole, he set aside the proceedings while overruling the respondent's preliminary objection, citing technicalities. The appeal court held that the trial judge failed to extend the orders of the February 9 in its final judgment of April 17. He said the second issue raised by the former governor on the interim order had become an academic exercise. The appellate court had earlier granted an ex parte motion for stay of contempt proceedings filed against Olukoyede by ex-governor Bello. Moving on now, President Bola Tinubu is expected to receive a draft bill seeking a return to a regional system of government for Nigeria. The proposed legislation, authored by a chieftain of the Yoruba Socio-Cultural Association, Afenifere Akin Fakbonda, seeks, among others, new extant laws to be cited as the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria New Governance Model for Niger Act 2024. The said bill was, however, disowned by the House of Representatives, whose spokesman, Akin Rotimi, and the chairman, Committee on Rules and Business, said had not been listed for deliberation in the ongoing moves to review the 1999 Constitution as amended. Fakbonda said that the bill would be transmitted to the president today. Earlier, the initiator of the draft bill, Akin Fakbonda, joined us on the news to discuss this further.
We have a federal government only in name. In all practical purposes, we are a unitary government under military command and control system. We have just one constitution for the whole country. In the federal system, there are two tiers of government. The federal, we have its own constitution. The second tier, we have its own constitution. Be that is made, the Nigerian National Assembly does its own thing the way it wishes without taking cognizance of the views of Nigerians. The National Assembly is fixated on incremental change in the constitution. Amend a little there, a little the other place, because They have 1 billion naira every legislative session to amend constitution. So this assembly now, in the next 4 years, they have 1 billion naira. They want to spend the money. They are not interested in one final solution to Nigerian problem of constitution.
To Labour matters now, the Association of Local Government of Nigeria has raised concerns over the proposed 62,000 naira minimum wage, insisting that if approved, the wage may put a strain on the council's financial burden. Algon National President Aminu Bayero said it would be difficult for local government administrations to pay the proposed 62,000 naira. According to him, some of the 774 local government areas in the country are still struggling to pay the 30,000 naira minimum wage approved in 2019. Meanwhile, the federal government on Wednesday admonished organized labor to consider the broader economic implications of its push for an unrealistic higher national minimum wage. Earlier, we were joined by the National Coordinator of Education Rights Campaign, Hassan Soweto, to discuss this.
If you look at what has been happening in the past few periods in the country, we have had several cases of corruption, by state governors, by political office holders at different levels. And we have never had a situation whereby, despite the gargantuan nature of those corruption, that they have caused a spike in inflation. I mean, a recent example was, the former governor of Kogi State, who allegedly stole a lot of money and paid his children's school fees, for several years, ahead. And we didn't hear this argument. So why is it that when it comes to workers' wages, that is when this argument of inflation, is deployed? And it's just a lie, because if you look at it, inflation has gone up in the last 12 months, astronomically. And that wasn't because workers' wages were increased. It was simply because the government decided to disrupt the economy by implementing some policies like fuel subsidy removal and the devaluation of the naira.
Away from that, 3 persons have died following the collapse of another mining pit in the Adono community, Waikoro local government area of Niger State. The Director General of the Niger State Emergency Management Agency, Abdullahi Barbara, confirmed the deaths and the rescue of 1 person in the community. According to the DG, all those trapped were recovered from the pit following community efforts. The mining site is said to be an illegal mining site that attracts mostly women and children from the community. You're watching News Central now. We'll go on a short break. We'll be back in a bit. To stay with us. Many thanks for staying with us. Nigeria's federal government has pledged to partner with the nation's Christian community in implementing its National Value Charter. This was made known by the Minister of Information and National Orientation during the ongoing Charismatic Bishops' Conference of Nigeria, holding in Abuja, where the Assembly of Bishops commended President Bola Tinubu for not marginalizing the Christian community in the country. Amadin Uyi reports.
It was an assembly of charismatic bishops in Nigeria, also known as the Synod.
The bishops have gathered from 21 countries, the 36 states plus FCT. These are all Nigerian bishops, and we have gathered to demonstrate our partnership in progress with this government.
The president of the Christian Association of Nigeria commended the federal government for allaying the fears of the Christian community, despite running on a Muslim ticket during the last presidential elections, saying fears of marginalization have been proven wrong.
When this government was coming into place, some people say, oh, it's a Muslim government. Christians will be in trouble. Christians will be killed. All kinds of fears were expressed. But since this government came into being, we have enjoyed religious harmony.
The Minister of Information and National Orientation, who was invited to declare the assembly open, urged the leaders to promote unity among citizens, especially among those of different faiths.
Your role as spiritual leaders is in promoting peace, unity, and hope within our communities. And this, of course, cannot be overstated.
He commended the church for partnering with government in the provision of social amenities like schools and hospitals, and pledged to partner with Christian faith leaders as government launches its National Values Charter.
The Federal Ministry of Information and National Orientation will very enthusiastically collaborate with the Charismatic Bishops' Conference as we implement our flagship national orientation program, the National Values Charter.
The minister also commended the role played by Christian faith leaders in the recent impasse with organized labor, where they appealed to labor to shelve their strike and return back to the negotiating table. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadine Uyi.
Talking health, Nigeria reported 65 confirmed cholera cases and 30 deaths across 96 local governments in 30 states from January 1 to June 11. This is according to the Nigeria Center for Disease Control and Prevention. The NCDC issued a public health advisory warning of rising cholera cases as the rainy season continues. A recent outbreak in Lagos State led to around 60 hospitalizations and 5 deaths within 48 hours. In 2024, 1,141 suspected cases were recorded with 10 states, namely Bayelsa, Zamfara, Abia, Cross River, Bauchi, Delta, Katsina, Imo, Nasarawa, and Lagos, accounting for 90%. Cholera, a highly contagious disease, spreads through contaminated food or water and poor sanitation. Symptoms include sudden watery diarrhea, vomiting, nausea, and fever. This afternoon, joining us to talk more about this, I'm being joined by Dr. Chukwuka Pascal Obodo, CEO and co-founder My Medicare. Dr. Obodo, thank you so much for joining us on the news. Can you please unmute your device? Dr. Obodo, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you very well. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Now, before we talk about the measures, let's look at the statistics. 65 confirmed cases in Nigeria, 30 deaths in 96 local government areas. Now, if we are to put it in critical assessment, we are to assess it critically, would you say that the reactionary time and the treatment have been optimal? Are you proud, looking at the fact that 30 people died, almost half of the confirmed cases in the country between January and June 11? Hello, Dr. Obodo. Dr. Obodo, can you hear me? I guess we're going to revisit this particular story, hopefully, as we continue with the stories, with the news rather. But then let's now tell you that with the Eid al-Adha set to start on June 16, consumers in Algeria and Libya are complaining about the high prices of sacrificial lamb. For their part, livestock farmers attribute the hike in the prices to the rising cost of fodder and the shortage of supply in the face of strong demand, creating a direct impact on consumers' purchasing power.
الزوالي مسكين ما يقدرش يشري تا الاخر ما يشبعش 5 من الناس يقول لك 10 منين راه غالي الماكلات
الرحبة التبن قال لك 100,000 والبوطنقرط ب 100 والشعير ب 600 700. احنا واش نديروا؟ ما لقيناش الحل. احنا نوليو صافي هكذا نوليو الثروه دي راح تروح. علاش تروح من المشكل هذا. احنا لا غالب درك واش نديروا؟ ما عندناش حل واحد اخر اللي يجيب 10 ملايين ما يقدر، وحنا المواله ما قدرنا لهم.
تدفع نظرا لارتفاع اسعار الاعلاف، والدوله ما دعمتش المواطن وما دعمتش المربي، ولا استوردت اغنام اللي هي تكفي السوق وتؤدي الغرض، والناس كلها تضحي. فلهذا الاسعار مرتفعه جدا والله.
Coming up on the news, swearing in of new members, election of president, speaker holds. We'll bring you details in a short while. Please stay with us. Thanks for being there. Earlier on the news, we told you that Nigeria has reported 65 confirmed cholera cases and 30 deaths across 96 local governments in 30 states from January 1 to June 11. We also told you that about 60 people have been hospitalized in Lagos with about 4 deaths recorded. We have joining us on the news to discuss this Dr. Chukwuka Pascal Obodo, CEO and co-founder My Medicare. Dr. Obodo, finally, we're able to have you join us on the news. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So we're actually looking at the numbers, 65 confirmed cases of cholera outbreak in the country between January 1 and June 11, with about almost half of that people died. 30 people actually died. Now, I was actually asking in terms of the reactionary time to these cases and the kind of treatment being proffered, would you say that the services or the service has been optimal, or do you think more could have been done to save those lives?
Okay, thank you very much for that. All right, so for me, obviously the numbers are very, very hard. Okay, quite a number of individuals, when we're talking about human beings, okay, that died because probably they didn't get what they needed to, the treatment that they needed to get, all right, and proper follow-up. Okay, so it's not a figure that we should be proud of, and I really believe that a lot can be done to keep that moving forward.
So what measures now can individuals and communities take to prevent the spread of cholera, especially during this rainy season?
Okay, so I'll have to break it down to individuals, communities, and of course environmental. Okay, for individuals, okay, personal hygiene is very important. Washing of hands, cleaning your toilets. Okay, ensuring that the water you take, if you are not sure of the source, you can boil the water for decades. Okay. For the community, at the community level, health education, because many people don't even know how cholera is transmitted. Okay, so a lot can be done about that, just like we are doing now, telling people more about cholera, teaching them to understand, how it's being transmitted. In addition to that, safe treatment of water, okay, making sure that water is properly treated at the plant before being disposed to individuals that will consume that. And at the environmental level, ensuring that we don't throw in dirt, okay, or waste products into our waters or gutter, because at the end of the day, it might still find its way into the water supply that most individuals have access to.
All right, now we know that Lagos has a population of about 20 million. Now, given the recent outbreak in the state, what steps would you expect health authorities to take in order to manage and contain the spread of the disease, most especially in a country that is heavily trafficked by people?
Okay, so about that, number one on the list is still people. Okay, vaccination campaigns can also be done because there's a vaccine that can be given to more or less enhance people's immunity to cholera. In addition to that, having protocol team, okay, I think that should be the best thing to be done. Okay, this protocol team, what they will have to do is identify those that have cholera, isolate them, properly treat them. Okay, treatment this time has to do with rehydration, giving of antibiotics, to those individuals that are already affected. More so, I also talked about the vaccine. Very, very important that they do that because that can help, curtail that. And I believe in that a lot of lives can be saved.
Let's speak more about what an individual can do, most especially in suspecting such a case. If to actually find out or notice that someone has the strains or symptoms rather of cholera, what are the physical signs that I should be looking out for?
Okay, what is true? Okay, this individual, those that have cholera, they find it very hard to control their stool. Okay, their passwords to stool from continuously. In addition to that, some individuals vomit. Okay, when it gets very bad, because certain electrolytes are being lost, there could be cramps. Okay, muscle cramps, other forms of injection. So these are the signs, okay, that these individuals have. So moving to that, when you have, when you are feeling very badly, and dressing a lot, ensure that you hydrate yourself properly and report to the nearest hospital so that you can receive appropriate treatment.
All right, Dr. Chukwuka Pascal Obodo, CEO and co-founder of My Medical. Thank you so much for educating us this afternoon.
All right, bye.
Let's now go to West Africa, where we understand that the taps feeding a pipeline carrying oil from landlocked Niger to Benin Republic for export have been shut off, escalating a diplomatic row between the neighbors. Ties have been strained since last year's coup in Niger and the Benin port of Semekoji, which exports Niger's oil, has emerged as a flashpoint under regional sanctions imposed on Niger after the coup. Benin closed the border but has since reopened it. Niger's military rulers, however, have refused to reopen their side. The oil is essential to the economies of both countries and to the Chinese company WAPCO, which operates pipeline. In Central Africa, the government of the Democratic Republic of Congo is studying legal action against Apple in France and the United States after accusing the U.S. tech giant of using illegally exploited minerals. In April, the DRC's Paris-based lawyers said Apple had purchased key minerals smuggled from DRC into neighboring Rwanda, where they were laundered and integrated into the global supply chain. Lawyer William Bourdon said that after receiving a formal notice, Apple had given only a terse response that could be considered a form of contempt, cynicism, and arrogance. The DRC is rich in tantalum, tin, tungsten, and gold, known as 3T or 3TG, that are used in producing smartphones and other electronic devices. To the southern part of Africa, the leader of South Africa's biggest opposition party, John Steenhuisen of the Democratic Alliance, said his party has reached an agreement to form a multi-party coalition government. Steenhuisen said the DA has reached agreement on the statement of intent for the formation of a government of national unity. He added that the DA would join the ruling ANC and the Zulu nationalist IFP. Earlier, Chief Justice Raymond Zondo had opened the first sitting, swearing in members of parliament in batches ahead of planned votes on the election of a speaker, deputy speaker, and a president.
We believe that we have reached a major breakthrough, that the majority of political parties in our country agree that this moment requires working together, not to get into it like a melting pot, but with set principles for others. We have engaged with the DA. We agree on the GNU with them. We have engaged with PA. They agree with the GNU. We have engaged with UDM. They agree with GNU. We have engaged with the IFP. They agree with the GNU.
Meanwhile, South Africa's 7th Parliament has sworn in newly elected members of Parliament in Cape Town. The Parliament will then elect the next president and speaker. Chief Justice Raymond Zondo opened the first sitting of South Africa's 7th Parliament since the advent of post-apartheid democracy in 1994, swearing in members of Parliament in batches ahead of the election of the speaker. Despite the sitting, parties are still engaging in last-minute discussions to see if they can form part of the government of national unity. Away from South Africa, we tell you that Malawian President Lazarus Chakwera has appealed to the international community to render its support in the investigation of the plane crash that claimed the lives of Vice President Solus Chilima and 8 others on Monday. Chakwera made this appeal on Thursday morning when he met with over 20 heads of missions and international agencies at Kamuzu Palace in Lilongwe, Malawi. Meanwhile, with only 5 days left for the president to appoint a new vice president as mandated by law, the clock is ticking and the nation eagerly awaiting this crucial decision. Political analysts also say this will be crucial for the political landscape in Malawi. Still ahead on the news. Putin says Kyiv must withdraw troops and NATO bid for peace to reign. We'll have more on this and other stories to come your way in a short while. Don't go away. From other continents, we tell you that Russian President Vladimir Putin says Moscow would cease fire and begin peace talks immediately if Ukraine pulled back troops from 4 regions and gave up its NATO membership bid. The Russian leader was outlining its conditions to halt the full-scale military offensive that he launched in February 2022, speaking on the eve of a major peace summit in Switzerland orchestrated by Ukraine and its allies. Russia claimed to have annexed the 4 regions in 2022, despite not having full control over any of them. Putin said he did not rule out maintaining Ukrainian sovereignty over the southern Kherson and Zaporizhia regions on the condition that Russia has a strong land link with Crimea.
Встречи в Швейцарии лишь еще одна уловка, чтобы отвлечь всеобщее внимание. Поменять местами причину и следствие украинского кризиса, пустить дискуссию по ложному следу и в какой-то степени обозначить видимость легитимности действующей исполнительной власти.
Now I'll take you to the Middle East to tell you that 2 cruise missiles launched by Yemen's Houthi rebels struck a bulk of cargo carrier in the Gulf of Aden on Thursday, severely injuring a sailor who was evacuated by American forces. The Houthis have been targeting vessels in the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden since November 2023, and attacks they say are in solidarity with Palestinians during the ongoing Israel-Hamas war in the Gaza Strip. Although this has caused a major disruption to international shipping, casualties have been rare. The Houthis have announced they carried out the attacks on 3 ships within the past 24 hours, including the Verbena in the Arabian Sea and 2 other vessels in the Red Sea.
البحرية والقوة الصاروخية وسلاح الجو المسير في القوات المسلحة اليمنية بعون الله تعالى 3 عمليات عسكرية خلال 24 ساعة الماضية وعلى النحو التالي: الأولى نفذتها القوة الصاروخية في البحر العربي، استهدفت سفينة فربينا وقد أصيبت إصابة مباشرة ما أدى إلى اشتعال الحريق فيها بفضل الله. والثانية استهدفت سفينة سيجاردين في البحر الأحمر وقد أصيبت إصابة مباشرة.
Now, according to data from the National Bureau of Statistics, tax payments from both domestic and foreign businesses in Nigeria decreased by 12% in the first quarter of 2024, resulting in a drop in the federal government's revenue to 1.13 trillion naira. Currently, companies with a turnover of more than 100 million naira are subject to a tax rate of 30%, while companies with a turnover ranging between 25 million and 100 million naira face a tax rate of 20%. Many of these companies believe that the tax percentage is burdensome and negatively affects the country's ease of doing business. Musa Obed, a macroeconomic analyst, expressed his views on this matter during an appearance on the Business Edge show.
Understand that there's currently a tax committee, right, being led by Tayo Oyedele, former partner of PwC, and what that committee is trying to do is to understand this kind of pains, this kind of problems, the current barriers in the tax regime. By September, Mr. Oyedele has stated that he will release a report from their findings to President Tinubu, and we believe that most of those recommendations that we made in that report will be carried out. So, and Mr. Oyedele has had a comprehensive discussion with key stakeholders in the Nigerian business space. On the other hand, how does it affect profitability? Well, when we ask ourselves, who are really the companies, right, operating in the 100 million turnover space in Nigeria? And these are companies that are really in the manufacturing sectors, in the mining sectors, etc. What does the
Still talking business, Diageo, the majority shareholder of Guinness Niger PLC, has made plans to sell its 58.02% control stake to Cholera, a multinational company based in Singapore. These agreements will grant Cholera ownership of Diageo's shares and the licensing rights to produce Guinness in Nigeria over the long term. The completion of the transaction is anticipated in 2025, pending regulatory approvals from Nigerian authorities. Guinness Nigeria now joins the growing list of multinational companies that have either withdrawn from the country or sold significant portions of their holdings. Musa Obed again tells us more as regards this.
P&G as well well as GSK left Nigeria with other companies as well. But I think in this particular case for Guinness Nigeria, it's not the same. And I'll explain what I mean. So the sale, right, of the majority stakeholder, the 58% from Jaido to Toleram Group, is a different situation because the person acquiring or getting that stake is Toleram Group. And Toleram Group has a presence in Nigeria, has been in Nigeria for 50 years. So technically, I think the position of Toleram is understanding that, okay, certain businesses are going and they want to be able to, have a further stamp on the Nigerian society, the Nigerian business space, or, sectors that they are currently working at as a consumer goods. But Toleram Group is not Nigerian, right? They are Singaporean/Indonesian, and they have understood that, okay, this is an environment that we can profit from. Remember, this is a company, a global company that has $1.2 billion in revenues as of 2021. So I think there are certain kinds of companies that are currently working in Nigeria that will take advantage of the situation, even though, like other foreign companies are exiting at the same time. And to just tell us how big was the, the transfer of ownership. So if we use the market capitalization to kind of calculate the 58%, right, we know that the stake that Toleram Group bought from Diageo was about 69.
A bit of sports now. The Nigeria Football Federation will hire an expatriate technical advisor for the Super Eagles after the team's dismal outing at the 2026 World Cup qualifiers. Nigeria have failed to win a match out of 4 games in the qualification series, the latest being a shocking loss to Benin Republic in their last clash. The developments triggered a backlash from fans calling for Finidi George's sack. Days after the loss, the NFF, in a Thursday communique following a meeting, said the appointment of the technical advisor would arrive or come in the weeks to come and apologize to Super Eagles fans for the team's outings in recent days. It is, however, unclear what role Finidi will play in the Super Eagles going forward.
Sad moment for Nigerian football. We can't run away from that. But all I want to assure you is that we are working tirelessly in conjunction with the minister to see that we come out with some holistic measures that will change the pace of the entire system so that we can move forward. Don't forget, it's still possible and we are going to make it. And I just want to assure you that we are going to fight it to the letter and Nigeria will qualify to the World Cup. This is not something that I will just say it now, but very soon you are going to see the measures that NFF will come out with, and by the grace of God, those measures that we are going to take will lead us to.
And that's all at this hour. But before we go, we take a look at some of our major stories. We told you that the Court of Appeal is expected to rule on the fate of the defecting status of the 25 pro-Wike Rivers State lawmakers today. South Africa's 7th Parliament swears in new members in its first sitting today. We also told you that Niger has shut off oil export pipeline to Benin Republic amid diplomatic row. Don't forget to send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number and email on your screen. You can follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can also watch News Central live on DSTV, channel 422, Star Times, channel 274, Avro TV and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Likon Onabanjo.